All right. It is Wednesday. It is 4:30 p.m. ish Central Time. Welcome to Office Service, everyone. Office Hours, everyone. I cannot speak today either. Fantastic. Hey there, Andrew. How are you?
I'm good. We just got to get, since we took a little vacation last week, we just got to get that muscle memory going again, and that's all right. We're going to be good.
Yeah, I'd like to leave the talking to you from the beginning because apparently I cannot. I need more coffee.
You and me both. We can bounce back and forth, and that's why there's two of us here, right? So I'm doing well. I'm not so much enjoying the humidity outside, but, other than that, as always, as I say, I think every week, I'm excited that it's Wednesday afternoon. We're most of the way through the week. We're here to talk about exciting things as always. And I'm happy to be back here with you after a couple of weeks.
There you go. Yeah. Brilliant. Same. Likewise. Yeah.
And of course, everybody that's joining us today. I can't forget them because we wouldn't be here without them joining us. So,
indeed, kind of boring to do a two-man show if there is no one else.
Exactly. So, all that said, maybe we should hop into it.
Let me see if I can share your screen without breaking the flow here.
All right. That looks like my screen.
Very good.
All right.
Before you do that, let me connect mine also.
Okay.
It has a weird... There we go. Now we can toggle nicely. Perfect.
All right. Perfect. So, first things first, nice little update here to Ugur Cook's IntuneAssignmentChecker, a nice tool that we've talked about a couple of times here that will actually help you identify and report on what assignments go where within Intune. Nice update that he added here in this version 1.3 will actually allow you to search for the assignments by the settings name, which I thought was really cool. Now, one thing I did notice in his tweet is that right now this is only for the English language, as it was quite difficult to implement this in the script, and that it is still in preview, but still a fantastic addition nonetheless. I am a big fan of just being able to search for things where possible, so I was excited to see this. Came across another short video from our friend Steve Weiner over here at Rubik's. He has just been pushing out content like no other recently. It is awesome. So he put together about a 5-minute video here just showing the Autopilot onboarding experience for new users, which I thought was just a great video. Goes through basically if you're a new user onboarding into the organization for the first time, walks through what that's like to open your device, sign in to start going through the autopilot process. And once you get to a certain part in that workflow, if you're onboarding for the first time, of course, you'll have to change your password for the first time. You may be required, hopefully will be required to configure MFA and all of that stuff. And Steve does a great job of just showing the short demo of what this looks like for your users. So thank you, Steve, for putting this together. This is fantastic. And then I came across a announcement that I, and it seems like many others, weren't too excited about. This is a little out of the ordinary of things that we normally talk about. But Microsoft announced that the Office 365 connectors within Microsoft Teams are being deprecated. The one that seems to affect people the most, myself included, is that means the incoming webhook connector for Teams as well. So if you have the incoming webhook connector configured for a specific channel, what you're able to do is send information to that webhook, which will then, in most of my experience, maybe use that for a notification into your Teams channel. Now, it's very easy to configure that today. You hit the configure button, you get a URL, and you can send information to that URL. Microsoft has provided a workaround, or rather a new solution, or what their new solution is for this. And that's using the Workflows app within Teams. Now, I personally have not tried the new solution just yet. I will be soon, but I've noticed the results in the comments apparently leave a little bit to be desired, I will say, or Johan, to use your words, room for improvement, as I understand it. So I wanted to mention this today because the announcement came out July 3rd, but the timing here, as you can see, the first wave, all new connector creation will be blocked starting August 15th. And then starting October 1st, all of these connectors will stop working. So that's pretty soon. If you have processes that rely on this, I wanted to point this out. And I see here Dan has already mentioned in the chat that webhook is going to break the MDT finishing imaging script that posts to a Teams channel. And Dan, absolutely, I think that is going to be something that a lot of our audience are probably using today. Certainly those in this part of the community as well.
A little bit of a short notice, don't you think, in general?
Extremely. I mean, from what I've been seeing in the comments here, even on this post, as well as Twitter and LinkedIn, folks aren't super happy about this, I would say. Speaking of social media, I did see today was a very big day for quite a few folks in the community. We got some MVP renewals today, I saw, which was very exciting. So I wanted to make sure that we gave a shout out to everybody that was renewed today. Kudos.
Oh, yeah, big kudos to everyone. This is... Thank you, MVPs out there. Thank you for what you're doing for the community. This is good stuff.
Absolutely. Our jobs would be a lot more difficult without those folks.
Indeed, indeed.
So that was all I had for right now, Johan.
Well, I had a few things on my mind, so I'm going to steal that screen back.
All right.
Borrow. There we go. So, speaking of MVPs, one of our MVPs at 2 Point will be speaking at OSD Day up in July 31st in Minneapolis. Niehaus is joining as well, together with, I forgot who. Matthew, Masaska, and Gary Block will be joining them.
Excellent. What a great group of speakers and a great user group, too. That's a fun bunch.
Oh, yeah. So, highly recommend to attend this one. The price is just right. It's for the community, so it's a free one. So, that is always nice. And speaking of community, I have a demo prepared based on a question that did come into our quite recently announced community here. But up on our academy, if you go to the VOA Community, this is a new forum that we opened up a little while ago, but free to join, free to ask questions, discuss, come with helping others, whatever you prefer. So I'll come back to that in just a little bit, because first I wanted to share this little tweet from Mike Terrell. We have been coming back to this UEFI security enhancements many times throughout office hours, but it appeared that I made some updates now on the official KB explaining this. Apply the update, possibly, yes, enforcing revocations or enforcing the new restrictions or the certificates for UEFI. Absolutely not. Not quite ready there yet. So I would recommend keep an eye on this one and keeping an eye on the community, what's going on regarding these fixes. Another topic I stumbled across was Gary having some, or was noticing some issues when using the latest ADK and PowerShell. And we haven't figured it out completely yet, but it seems to be like, depending on the OS version that you are servicing, you get a different behavior. So I'm quite curious out there what you folks have been seeing when using the new ADK to doing offline servicing of a media. For example, you're in the WinP phase, you do something to the image that has just been applied to the hard drive. In this case, it was getting figure out what packages that was installed and the features that were installed, etc. on it. So very curious. Worst case, yeah, you have to go back to go use this MXC for those things, but we keep an eye open on that one, and we'll report here on office hours as time goes by. Okay, so back to the community. The question that came in earlier today that I replied to was regarding how can I get BitLocker keys out of Intune so I can have them as an extra backup, rather than going into the console and copy and paste each and every key, which is fun. Maybe the first 200 devices, then it starts to get a little bit boring. So I remember that Petri, the Finnish MVP, he had, of course, the amazing utility, the Intune device details tool that we have showcased here a few times. So what I did is that I borrowed two of the functions from Petri's script. One to invoke graph request, but get them with like all the good stuff, not just the default limits. And then a function to get the actual BitLocker keys, or one or more, depending on the device. So I used the regular graph module, connect to my tenant. I put in the timer here in between my requests, milliseconds. And then I just connect it to the tenant. And then I have a few devices here where I basically just sort them by device type, but I have 30 some devices here that I have up in Intune. Some of these are encrypted or have BitLocker running on them. And this little snippet here will simply ask each and every device, do you have one or more recovery keys? And if so, in this particular case, just spit them out on the screen. I was just doing some testing. But of course, you can put that into an array and you can export that result. And then congratulations, you have your backup. So this is a very quick way to get the recovery keys, even if you have a lot of devices. There might be other ways to get it, the keys directly from the from that node in Graph, but I found this was a effective way to get them all quite quickly, at least way quicker than copying and pasting from the UI myself. So
I would say so.
Yeah, a little bit. So, anywho, that's what I had for that post.
Excellent. Nice work, sir.
Thank you.
All right. So it looks like we've got some questions and comments that have come in here in the chat. I did notice we had a message here over on Twitter from Jared, 7:30 in the morning here. So we must have Australia joining us at the moment, which is fantastic. Good morning. This is a nice way to start your day, I hope. So, all right. We've got a question here. Do you know of a way to force clients to only use a specific software update point? Preferred site system servers don't lock to a specific sub.
I mean, boundary groups will tell the clients which software update point to use. I don't know of any way of furthering restrict that. But if I go to a site server here, say this one, and head over to, if I can click correctly, one of my boundary groups, like the one in Stockholm here, In the references tab, this is where you have, you specify your, so if you have a dedicated sub, that one will be listed here as well. Because boundary groups is how you allow clients to fund management points, DPs, migration points, and software update points. So that's the only way I know how to assign the right software update point if you have multiple for given clients. So I hope that answered that question. If anyone happen to know the way to further restrict that, by all means, let us know in the chat, and we'll be happy to relay that answer. But this is why we have boundaries and boundary groups. And as I always say, I prefer very much to do IP address ranges over subnets, because ranges never lies to you, whereas a subnet may very well not be telling you the entire truth, depending on the subnet mask.
Of course. All right. We've got a question from Imran over on YouTube. We have 2 gigabytes worth of applications that need to be installed during and after Autopilot. I like to use Windows Configuration Designer and have all the applications installed and provision the laptops. Can this be done? Or if we have a better way to do it, what would be the recommendation? And then just a follow-up comment here. Using Windows Configuration Designer, all the applications seem to be installed faster rather than getting them from Intune.
Provisioning package was never designed to really install applications on more than one small little agent, something like that. I would not recommend the route to using a provisioning package for applications. That there is so limited options what you can do there, and once it's in the package, it's no. I would not recommend that. I would recommend to stick to either having Intune deliver them as normal. 2 gigs is not too bad. It's usually the number of applications that is the harder part. If you need to have lots of them, a sequence is more reliable. And the only supported way is to run a ConfigMgr sequence through a cloud management gateway during the Autopilot enrollment. Nihaus also posted a workaround how you can use an MDT light touch sequence as a Win32 app that in turn install whatever application that sequence is using. So that works quite as well, because it's a single app and it runs through them fairly quickly. So I would definitely go that route instead of putting them all in a provisioning package. Management of that will be interesting, I think, also.
Yep.
My 2 cents.
All right. Amir is asking us over on YouTube, how can we block device policies during a user-driven Autopilot ESP? Some of them cause a reboot when ESP moves from device setup to account setup, which requires a second user login, breaking the flow.
That I do not know.
I just have I had a couple of ideas to try at the risk of sounding like I'm overthinking this, or on the opposite side, oversimplifying this. Within the ESP, you could try using the, if you want to share my screen, Johan.
Mm-hmm.
2 things that I'm thinking. Could set this to no and see if that at least helps. The second thing I'm thinking is, if you have these device policies assigned to a certain group, and Johan, please interrupt me if you think I'm off base here. If you have those policies assigned to a certain group, you could exclude your autopilot devices from the outset. Though now that I'm saying that out loud, your autopilot devices are always going to be identified as autopilot devices even after going through ESP. So I don't know that that would work. Those would be the only things that I was thinking of, though. You'd have to maybe exclude them from your device assignment group, or sorry, from the group that you're assigning device configurations to in a different manner. Otherwise, I'm with you on this, Johan. I'm not sure of any way to do that easily. Those are just the two thoughts that I had that maybe might get the gears turning a little bit, Amir. Don't you love that when you think you have a decent idea and you start saying it out loud and you're like, well, was it that good? Yeah.
Yeah, I'm just pinging Mr. Autopilot himself on Teams here separately.
Okay.
If he replies, I will let you know. Otherwise, we can discuss it next week.
Perfect. All right. Well, thank you, sir. We had a question regarding your BitLocker script. Is that shared on GitHub?
And no, but let's see here. Let me forward the screen for a second.
All right.
So first of all, let me close these guys. Intune device details GitHub. That would be the script. So that was the script that I borrowed the functions from. So I figured I should definitely put that in it before sharing anything. Borrow from thank you. Can't even spell today. That's a bad combination. Cannot speak, cannot spell.
It's that lack of coffee.
Not really, but all right, I'll take it. So if I take this, and I'm just gonna get rid of the tenant ID before sharing this.
Always a good idea.
It's not the end of the world. It's just a lab environment, but good measures. So if I copy that over to scripts Intune, where we keep most of our Intune scripts, can ditch the version 2 in the name, and I will remove the tenant ID here. Add your tenant ID. And then a proper sync. Yeah, it's up there. It is up there. So on github.com deployment research, this is where we post most of our scripts. So this is the Intune folder, and that's where you see the get BitLocker thing script. All right.
All right. Great stuff. Turns out it wasn't shared, but you knew a guy, huh? Awesome. Thank you for the share, sir. On that script, Amir is actually asking for reading the BitLocker keys from Graph. Were all of those devices joined and logged in by the same user? The last time he tried this, he could only read his own BitLocker keys and not others.
So I ran the script as an admin, and that account has not been logged into. So these are different user accounts. The account that I got back earlier when running this, so these were 10, 11, and 12. Let's see what the user is for those. Yeah, those are different users also. Amy and Mike.
On top of that, your scopes that you defined in the script as well were the all permissions. So I think you had like device management read all. Yeah, device
Yeah.
management manage devices read all instead of just read. So
Yeah.
something else to pay attention to as well, Amir.
So I mean, I was not restricted to see because I was none of those users.
Mm-hmm. All right. Diego's got a question for us over on YouTube. I was wondering if there was a way to guarantee that the organization's devices are enrolled in Intune. How would you approach this scenario? It's happened that some devices are in Entra, but not in Intune.
Uh, I mean, verifying the enrollment. It's no way of guaranteeing that that device will succeed in an enrollment. Things can happen,
Mm-hmm.
but you can definitely look them up. You can search for devices that you have in Enter ID that don't have a management object connected to them. You can make a report, and you can that way you can figure out, all right, these are missing. They were supposed to be enrolled, they're not. And you can take action, figure out why they were not enrolled.
Healthy dose of scripting against Graph, you think?
Yeah, yeah.
Yep.
So, back to the autopilot question. Niehaus did reply in a timely fashion. So I will simply put his reply up on the screen here in good old Notepad. That's the reply I got.
All right.
And this was regarding blocking certain policies from applying, device policies. So,
During the autopilot enrollment.
yes, yes, yes.
Yep. All
So
right.
maybe that.
Thank you, Michael.
Yep, indeed. That was took maybe a full minute to get that reply.
Awesome. All right. We've got a question about auto enrollment over here on YouTube. Recently enabled auto enrollment for all devices via co-management settings. Once time has passed, are there any creative ways to verify all devices are enrolled and working correctly, other than just comparing all workstations in ConfigMgr versus the Windows devices total numbers in Intune?
Well, I haven't seen a ready-made report for it, but no.
No, I was going to say, unless you had something clever, it would be kind of what we were just saying about comparing Entra versus Intune. A little bit of clever scripting against ConfigMgr as well as Graph, and comparing those devices. I think is probably how I would approach that personally. Off the top of my head, I can't think of any built-in reports or anything like that that would make that easier. Not that there aren't any.
Yeah.
All right. And Keith is joining us today over on YouTube, and he is asking about, he was just asked about the creation of zero touch autopilot. Is there such a thing? And if so, any references?
Well, Zero Touch was just, I mean, the name originally came from the BDD implementation back in the days for the SMS feature pack, SMS 2003 feature pack. But that name has been living together with MDT since, but it's also part of the out-of-box experience, the autopilot. You will often see acronyms like ZDI and stuff like that referencing Zero Touch. I think this might be a reference to the kiosk or the self. The kiosk scenario in Autopilot. That's the only thing I can think of as being Zero Touch.
Mm-hmm. Like a full self deployment.
Yeah.
Yep.
But you often see the word Zero Touch being mentioned, but that there is no core scenario that is named Zero Touch.
Mm-hmm. Yep, agreed. So we've got another question over here on YouTube, asking about your integration or your interaction with GitHub. Are you using GitHub Desktop Client for syncing your scripts? I've been using VS Code Git integration for this, but what you did there looked a little bit easier. And also, second question, do you have different branches for safety?
So the answer is depends. For one of those few of the repositories I'm using, we are using indeed VS Code, and I have some extensions installed on that, like GitLens, etc., to get additional functionality. But for the lab scripts that I'm using, I've been using GitHub Desktop exclusively. I don't have any other branches. I simply have the master repository. But on the other deployments projects that we work, for example, the PowerShell deployment kit, we have multiple branches that we work with. And we also multiple people. This is just the lab that I was showing just now is just an online repository of scripts. It's not like part of a project in any means. And for that purpose, I think the GitHub for Desktop is fantastically simple to use. But there is nothing wrong with using VS Code at all to synchronize your repository. It's a little bit more complicated, if not, but it's not too terrible.
I agree. And typically, though, I probably shouldn't say this is 100% of the time, but typically, if I'm contributing as well, I have a forked version of that repository where I'll actually put in a pull request to commit my changes to the main branch. Now, of course, in this repository, I can also approve my own pull request, but that adds a little bit of safety as well when we're actually collaborating on something, which is helpful, I think.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, a good example is not the repository I showed here, but these guys that Andrew mentioned, where Andrew has contributing a lot of stuff into this one.
You want to share your screen, Johan?
Of course not. So this repository here, so basically the same account, but a different repo. and this is where we indeed have a lot of folks that have been doing forks of it, and one of them is Andrew, and he's been sending in requests that have been approved. So, yeah. But yeah, this,
Awesome.
this tool is small, simple, easy to use.
It really is. I've gotten used to it quite a bit as well, probably because it's so simple. You don't have to remember all the Git commands, and for somebody that's not in it on a day-to-day basis, makes things much easier for me.
Yep.
All right. Dan had a comment related to guaranteeing that Entra devices get enrolled into Intune. Set up some conditional access policies, then you'll find out who's not enrolled. Yeah, it's one way to do it, definitely.
Yep.
All right. Amir just had a follow-up comment here on the device configuration profiles. So it sounds like in his case, a reboot and a second login is inevitable for device-only policies. But much appreciated for clearing that up.
All right.
Right.
Any other questions out there?
Let's see. Just checking to make sure I haven't missed anything so far.
I mean, by all means, feel free to submit questions for office hours here as well. We will definitely highlight if there are things that we are finding interesting and that we can share here in office hours as well. But yeah.
All right. We did just have another question come in here over on YouTube. I'm finding it difficult to find out why a particular device is reporting an error on a custom policy type. I've reset the device and enrolled it again. Other devices have succeeded. Any ideas on how to troubleshoot that, I think, is the question here.
Nothing short of I mean, if you reset the device and it still behaves different than all other devices. So basically, you have 5 devices receiving the exact same policy, but one of them just misbehaving. I probably would gone down the road of simply re-imaging that device.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean, you can do client-side troubleshooting in Intune all day long. But if the policies are working on others, there is nothing wrong with sort of the server side of things.
Yeah, nothing to add here.
F12, boom, done.
It's so simple. Love that F12. Yeah, just a follow up here. Thank you. Figured it's a device image problem, most likely.
All right. Anything else out there?
Well, while we wait, I have something that I was playing around with the other day that I could show that I thought was pretty cool.
Deal.
All right.
Share your screen. Yeah.
So we've talked a few times about LAPS, or the new Windows LAPS, or the local administrator password solution. And up to this point, and it looks like until at least 24H2, if you wanted to use a custom account for LAPS, you have to create it yourself. So there's always the question of how do we do that? Because the two ways that you can use LAPS is by default, LAPS will take over the password or the management of the password for the built-in administrator account. Well, for most of us, we're disabling that account, and so the alternative is creating that custom that custom account. But you have to do it ahead of time for LAPS to actually work. So basically, if we look here, I have a LAPS policy in Intune. So I'm going to look at this one right here. It's just called Enter ID LAPS config. You can see I have it assigned to a couple of devices. Looks like it's succeeding right now, which is good. But if we look at the actual configuration, you can see that I have a custom administrator account name called ADM Labs Admin that I'm using here. So how do we actually get that account created so that this policy can take and do what it needs to do for the password on that account? A solution that I've come across and implemented here in my lab, and I'll show it here shortly, is a remediation script from Niels Cook. Basically, what this does is, if we scroll down here, we'll take and detect whether or not that LAPS account exists. And if not, then we can have the second remediation script that will go through and create the LAPS account and give it a random password of your choosing. You can see here, well, I shouldn't say random password of your choosing. The password is random, but you can choose the parameters and how long that password is, the characters that are used, as you can see here in the script. So you can define the length, you can define the characters, and then that random password is generated. It's not stored anywhere, nobody ever knows it, but it is enough to get that local account created with a random password, and then LAPS can start managing it. So basically with this solution, I went ahead and uploaded it into my tenant here. If I go over to my devices and scripts or remediations, and then you can see I have a remediation here called Create Windows LAPS User. When we click on that, you can see that it was created, and I've had a couple of devices that I've turned on over the last day or so. So we're seeing success there, which is good. But if I look at the properties of this and edit my settings here, you can see that I have his detection script set up here, as well as the remediation script. And with that in place, that custom account gets created. My LAPS policy works just fine with the custom account, and everything's good. Now, I mentioned with 24H2, what Microsoft has announced that they have been working on. I don't know that I've seen anything official that this absolutely will be in 24H2, but I know in some of the insider builds of Windows 11, the policy is built in such a way that it should help create this account for you. I haven't played around with that much myself, but we've definitely come across news of that. So we'll see if that makes it into 24H2. This gets a little bit easier, but thanks to Neil's script here, it's actually pretty straightforward for us to do right now anyways. So kudos on that. This works fantastically. Did not take much effort, I must say. So just wanted to show that off because I was playing with it recently. Actually, this came out of our user group meeting last month, where we talked about LAPS a little bit.
Yeah, great demo. Thank you, sir.
Yeah, of course. All right. David's got a question here over on YouTube regarding F12. A simple question: does anyone have a link to an unattend.xml using Vanilla Windows 11 USB stick to allow the machine to arrive ready for autopilot on the standard screen?
Probably. Probably. Let me see. We're using some for our Intune training 1 point. Well, this one is pretty dang close. Let me share my screen. So this script here, I believe we have a copy up on the GitHub repository for it. We have an autopilot folder. Well, if you take this one and get rid of the auto logon and get rid of the out-of-box experience, and of course these guys here, that will stop in the out-of-box experience page. I can make a working example that just stops at that point. You obviously have to register the device at that point then. This is a script for when we bring up a machine in full Windows and then do the registration. But yeah, I'll put something together.
Awesome. Thank you, sir.
All right. Any other questions?
I just saw a comment from Dan here regarding the incoming webhooks connector for Teams. And this is kind of the comments that I've been seeing around the Power Automate Flow, which is what Microsoft is saying is the new solution for these to create the webhook, is very confusing, and the old one was very simple. Agreed from what I've seen. So hopefully it gets a little easier, or at the very least, I hope they give a little bit more time, given the short runway they provided, but we'll see. And then David just had a follow up on his question about the unattend file, basically, and essentially the fastest way to get rid of any bloatware that's pre installed before we send the device out. So, makes sense.
Yeah, it's hard to beat a quick image. Yeah.
Exactly. Run out of note space.
Yeah. Just putting a reminder in front of me to not forget to upload that on a 10 file.
Very good.
Yeah. All right. Any other questions out there? We still have 6 minutes to go here.
So far, I think we've answered everything.
I think so too.
Well, at least to the best of our ability.
Yeah. All right then. Once again, our big congrats to all MVPs out there who was either renewed or announced earlier today. Thank you so much and congrats. And other than that, thank you all for joining, and we hope to see you again next week. Have a good one.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.